But I dare say, and this is where we get into a conversation about Singapore that isn't, as you say, just about extraordinary growth rates and economic success, but is about the way in which the body politic works. To some of us sensitive flowers in the West, the authoritarianism that underpins that approach to managing a society feels uncomfortable to us.
Yeah, so that's a caricature. I mean, even The Economist, which is not exactly a cheerleader for Singapore, would say, as it just did in its editorial form of obituary when Mr. Lee Kuan Yew passed away, that Singapore has free, fair, and regular elections. We are a parliamentary democracy, not in exactly the same mold as Britain or the United States, certainly.
No, I mean,
we are a parliamentary democracy, and an elected government makes decisions which it feels are in the best interests of the country today and for the future. And we are accountable for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a democracy of sorts. You don't have a genuinely free, truly liberated press.
Not in the British sense.
No, well, not in any sense. I mean,
but in the
much as I'd like to take credit for the notion of a free press, it's not a British idea.
I didn't mean it entirely as a compliment, but as a description. But as a description.
You are missing page 3 of the Sun newspaper, and that's no great loss, I agree. But actually there is a serious point when journals that are respected and have a role to play, like, you know, the Far East Economic Review, for years and years are hounded by government.
The rules are very clear and simple. Singapore is an extremely open society by virtue of the number of foreign publications that are circulated, well over 5,000. The fact that Singaporeans are probably more than any other society broadband penetrated. The fact that they're English educated and have access to a whole world of information on the internet. It's an extremely open society. There's no doubt about it. We are unconventional in requiring in our laws that we have the right of reply when foreign publications publish something that we feel is false or misleading. We just have the right of reply. And when publications, as you know very well, refuse to publish a reply, we impose restrictions on them that affect the advertising revenues. Unconventional, you might not agree with it, but the larger point is this. I think we all need some humility. We all need some humility on the ways that best advance a liberal order. To take Lord Griffith's point this morning, a liberal order economically, socially, and politically. We all need some liberty, some humility as to how we achieve that, not just for today, but for tomorrow. How do you sustain it? How do you best sustain it? The most thoughtful observers in the West of the view that you need some buffers, you need some margins of safety, and you need some compromises on some liberties in order to achieve others. And the freest possible media is not the only liberty we aspire to. I do think it's a good idea, by the way. It appeals to my ideals, but it's not the only liberty you aspire to. You do aspire to a liberty of being able to walk the streets freely, particularly if you're a woman or a child at any time of the night. You aspire to the liberty of living in a city that's not defined by its most disorderly elements. You aspire to the liberty of having an opportunity for an education and a job regardless of your race or your social background. And you aspire to a liberty of practicing your own religion without fear of bigotry or discrimination. Those are very important liberties in many societies, and they're lacking in many societies.
Well, I think we're getting into a very interesting area, and Singapore, to me, is the sort of body politic which we in the West struggle to define in a way, because maybe we have a slightly sort of simplistic binary approach to this. We either want, we look at free societies like, I suppose, mine or Western European or the US models. We would say free societies, and then we would look at a China, for example, and we'd say a not free society. They have capitalism of a sort, but they certainly don't have democracy. And we'd say not free and dysfunctional politically. You sit in neither camp.
Uncomfortably.
As far as we're concerned, we can't really pigeonhole you. But here's a thought for you. Maybe your system is coming to a crossroads or a turning point, because the digital age is changing things somewhat. You know, the information flows and the top-down approach that your society has taken perhaps don't fit so easily into a digital age. And I just wonder, you know, when there are theories about the relationship between political economy and innovation and long-term sustainable economic success through innovation, whether Singapore is going to have to change, and whether the authoritarian model, if you don't mind me using that word, is going to have to be reviewed and fundamentally adapted. What do you think?
So, Lee Kuan Yew would never have expected that Singapore would remain what it is today forever. I don't expect, and I don't think any of my colleagues in government expect it's going to remain this way forever. It has to evolve. We start with the cards we are dealt with. We start with history shapes choices, and the history I described briefly earlier on did shape choices. It shaped social choices, it shaped political choices. But we must never be trapped by our history. We have to keep evolving. And it is a worthy ideal to aspire for a system where individuals are well-educated, are good judges for themselves of the information they read on the internet or on the media, are able to make their own minds up. I think that's a worthy ideal to aspire towards. But how do we do it in a way that's self-sustaining? And to think that you simply, if all forces are let loose, whether it's the media or anything else, that you're able to achieve the liberties that matter most to people: safety, freedom of religious belief, the freedom to aspire in life and achieve what you want through hard work.
But
those are very important liberties.
But simplistically put, is there going to be room for more individualism in Singapore in the future?
So if you look at Singapore today compared to not even 50 years ago, 10 years ago, it's a vastly different place. It's a vastly different place. Singaporeans are educated, discerning, skeptical, and critical people. They know what's what. There's no doubt about it. And Singapore continues to evolve. It's a function, of course, of the fact that we've had some success in education. It's a function of the fact that, as you say, it's a digital world. It's an open world. So there's no doubt about it. But let's not think that we are all moving teleologically towards that destination that you now see in the United States or UK. We'll all have to evolve, and we all need some humility as to how we progress democracy.
But will Singapore always be the kind of society where the government says, ultimately, you can't live there because the quota for your particular ethnic grouping has already been reached, you've got to go and live there? Is it going to be that kind of society forever?
That's imponderable. I think it'll be naive to think that you can lift it and people will automatically gravitate towards diverse neighborhoods, and you won't, in fact, get the reverse. Because if you look at the most advanced democracies, that's exactly what's happened. You have in the United States, you have in France, you have in Germany, you have even in the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, half the Muslim population lives in your bottom 10% of neighborhoods. Did it happen because of some random chance? Or does it happen because that's the natural workings of society? We have to address these facts honestly and realize that, look, human beings aren't perfect. Everyone has biases, discomforts, a sense of liking or distrust for each other. And there is a role of government and elected representatives to unify people. And it doesn't happen through speeches. It means you need mechanisms, you need instruments. They mustn't be too constraining on individual choice, but you do need to constrain something. And you end up a better society, or don't you? That's the test, not whether the government is right. Do you end up a society that people feel more comfortable in? That's the real test. It's easy to talk about Singapore, but quite frankly, this is a challenge we all face.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, I know full well that the sorts of issues that come out of making an ethnically diverse nation work are extremely important to a whole bunch of nations far beyond Singapore, not least my own. But it seems to me you are now facing some of the problems that other nations have faced for quite a long time.